Hello, and welcome to Opt to Thrive, episode 15, part 2 of The 3 Principles of Weight Management in Midlife. It's that easy, with special guest Dr. Suzanne Rutherford.
Welcome to Opt to Thrive, your go-to podcast for women's wellness in midlife, designed to educate, support, and inspire you to live your very best life. And now your host, Dr. Karina Sims.
That's probably a good segue into the movement piece of the conversation. Where would you like to start?
Oh, goodness. Yes. Well, let's start with the obvious, what I think is the most important, when it comes to, again, preserving muscle, living well, living long, which is what we want, but also living in a body that serves you well and makes you feel good and functions the way you want it to. And really the key to that is in our movement, we have to prioritize strength training. Really, truly, and honestly, I think it needs to be a part of our lives from the time we're children, right through the time, we are living our last days. I think there's always a need for strength training, should be the core, but I believe it to be so incredibly important for women in their midlife as they go through the perimenopause, menopause transition. Like, to me, strength training in some capacity needs to be a non-negotiable sort of goal for any woman who wants to transition through her 40s, 50s, feeling her best and functioning well. It really has to be key. It doesn't need to be complicated. It doesn't need to be, 6 days a week, but it needs to be there. And like Karina, you and I, oh my goodness, do you remember all those years? We strength trained really because we have since high school, and you and I were strength training back in the gym, but we were doing our step aerobics and, I still love step aerobics, by the way. Still highly recommend step aerobics, but like it wasn't a push when we were growing up. Like, it was all about cardio, especially if you were trying to lose weight. It was all about the cardio and sweating and sweating and sweating. The strength training thing, like, truly and honestly, you were probably my first friend I came across who joined me in the gym to strength train. And it wasn't for lack of trying. All through my undergrad, I would try to, take my classmates and roommates and like, let's go to the gym. And it was a really foreign concept. And when we were strength training at the gym, we were often the only ones in the weight section, along with the guys. It's really changed, and I'm super excited. It's very different now, which I love to see. But truly and honestly, when it comes to movement, strength training has to be the foundation.
Okay. Yeah. Preaching to the choir.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you say? There's so much that we could unpack here, but I suppose maybe I'll just pick a couple of things. So when we're looking at building our muscle mass, what do you say to the people who are still probably making it more of a cardio, so circuit training?
Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing about exercise. Although I just went on this big thing about strength training, because I really do think it's critical to living a long time. And I feel that immensely passionate about that as a woman, but also as a physician. Like I said, because I see it in my patient population, the beautiful benefits it has. But I will say that any sort of exercise is good exercise. Like, you will never catch me saying you shouldn't do that form of movement, because any movement to me is beneficial. And moving our bodies is what we need to do more of in general as a society, right? I think it's a lot of our problem is that we are becoming sedentary and we are not moving our bodies. So if you're coming to me saying I'm doing HIIT style classes or circuit classes, where, if I'm understanding it right, I'm sure that's the same over there, you do a little bit of strength training really fast, and then you do like a cardio station, and then you do strength training really fast, and then another cardio station. If that's what you're doing and you're loving it, and not doing that would mean you probably wouldn't do anything at all, I'd say keep doing it, right? Any movement is good movement. I would not ever discourage someone and try to tell them any sort of, if you're walking every day, that's beautiful. Like, that's amazing. And that will do wonderful things for your health. But if you're coming to me and saying, look, I really want to preserve my muscle mass because I really want to preserve my metabolism as I go through menopause, and I really want to come out of this feeling really good in my body, and I want to be able to enjoy my children and ride my bikes and ski. Sorry, your Australians aren't listening, but I know you've got listeners all over, ski fast down the hill and do all the things I like to do. I enjoy doing in my 20s, 30s. I want to do in my 50s, 60s. if that's truly your goal and strength is what's required to do those things, I would say that there are better ways to acquire strength than through circuit style classes. Strength training does require, again, intention. It requires progressive overload, which you've alluded to in other podcasts, where slowly over time you're lifting more and more weight. That is the stimulus your muscle needs to trigger it to grow and to get stronger. So I do think if, strength training being in a more sort of structured routine where you have time to lift the weights, you're not trying to mix it in with cardio where like you're throwing the weights up and down, doing some squats and then going and doing a whole bunch of burpees and then going back to squats. I personally think that leaving dedicated time for strength training where you can do the reps slowly, properly, really, really challenge yourself by lifting more weights, give your body the rest it needs in between sets so that it can pick up that heavy weight again and move it in a safe fashion, I would say that is ideal. Again, if you're sitting here telling me never in a million years will I ever go and do like just a purely strength-based workout, and the best I'll do is, what I'm getting through the circuit classes, I'd say keep going. But like I said, if you're really a listener looking to really hone in on your strength training, really build that muscle, then I would say a more structured strength training program is important. And it doesn't have to be fancy. Like it doesn't have to be, super fancy, complicated exercises. If you're not comfortable picking up a weight, the machines in your gym, you can get really, really great results from machines. You can get your progressive overload. There was a Mr. Olympia who like did just machines and ended up being one of the strongest men in the world. So it's possible. It's just a matter of, again, being a little bit more intentional about it.
If we were to look at, let's say, those women who've been raised on cardio and maybe have been very, very conscious of their weight for many, many years and maybe on the lower side of the calorie scale, kind of chronically, do we know much about how well they've been able to maintain muscle mass? And for those women, so let's say that they do circuit type training and that's kind of what they've focused on for many years, but they're very lean. Are they? I don't know. I don't know if there are any studies that show this, that how much muscle mass that those people lose. Like, are they still slowing down this loss of muscle? Do we know?
Well, definitely. I mean, it doesn't matter how lean you are. If you, again, aren't stimulating your muscles to build more muscle through adequate amounts of strength training, so putting resistance on those muscles, then you definitely won't be able to build more muscle, right? Now, these women, whether what they're doing is enough in those classes and doing whatever they're doing to stimulate the muscle to keep growing, it's possible. I don't know if there's any real studies that could sort of quantify that. But I will say, regardless of any woman, when it comes to their body, sort of stature, their body composition, or what they were doing before, they hit the perimenopause, menopause, I would say any woman that is not really prioritizing the amount of protein she eats and getting optimal amounts of protein and not doing some sort of resistance type of exercise, they will be losing muscle mass. And that's just the reality of it, right? And this is where I say the intention, like it will happen to us ladies if we are not intentionally fighting back, right? And by intentionally fighting back, I mean getting the resistance training in, stimulating those muscles and getting adequate amounts of protein. We can fight this and we can win this fight without doubt, 100%. But it can't be done without effort and intention and mindfulness. And it doesn't mean it has to consume your life. It doesn't mean all of a sudden you have to track every single thing you put in your mouth. It doesn't mean you have to strength train 6 days a week. This is not what I'm saying, but I'm saying it may mean, you know what? It's time now for me to make sure twice a week I'm resistance training. It may mean today I'm going to give up my pickleball game if I don't have time to do both. And I'm going to choose to go and get the 20, 30 minutes of strength training in. So instead of like playing pickleball 7 days a week, I'm now playing it 5 days a week and fitting some strength training in. Those are the decisions that we need to make and the changes that we need to make if we want to transition through this stage in our life with less drastic change. And I wish I could say we don't have to do anything. It will just help, but How's that all working for us, ladies? Like, not so well, right? Like, we've tried the whole, let's not change anything and just keep doing what we're doing, and it's not going so well. So I think it's just one of those things that it's the easier you sort of accept it, then the easier it is to start doing it. And as soon as you start doing it, the one thing, and Karina, you'll agree with me, like you feel friggin' amazing doing it, right?
Yeah.
You start doing strength training. It's one of my favorite things working with the women that I work with. These women who literally have barely picked up a weight in their life, and now they've got like, they're up at the squat rack and they're squatting and they're fueling their bodies in beautiful ways, and they're seeing strength and muscle they didn't know they were even capable of. Like, there's nothing more empowering than that. You know, body composition changes aside, just what it does to your mental, to like your confidence, to all of those things. It's incredible. My sister, bless her, she hates strength training. She's been a runner her whole life, but you know, she's same stage and age as we are, and she's picking up those weights now because she knows she has to. She's still not loving it. I will be honest, still not loving it, but I know she will. It just needs a bit more time, and you know, at least the results that come, how good you feel from, again, gaining that strength.
Okay, so I suppose what I hear you saying is that if we're not moving, then, you know, the next step is just to get moving, and we want you moving in any way, you know, that you can. And I suppose then there's a scale of, you know, you're going to have the people who aren't going to want to go to the gym. And so, you know, I get asked, is it being in the garden, is that enough? You know, and I could see how, you know, you're lifting things, you're squatting and lunging kind of just in those natural, I guess, functional kind of ways. So there's kind of that at one end of the spectrum. And then I suppose if you know, the gold standard of muscle building is resistance training, but there's a whole, I guess, kind of scale.
Yeah. So the work you're doing in the garden, amazing. You know, again, moving our bodies in functional ways, I think it, and continuing to move our bodies in our functional ways. As far as aging well, I think that's incredibly important. My mother's, you know, going to be 81, and she is that person. She's out cutting the grass and in the garden and doing all those things. And I think it has immense value. I think it's enough to help preserve function. Definitely. I think it's sufficient to help preserve function. And definitely the people that we see who age while moving and doing those sort of functional activities, whether it be gardening or golfing, you know, those kind of things, definitely do age with better function. Do I think it's enough to, again, stimulate muscle growth and gain strength? No. Again, am I telling you it's not worth anything? No, there's value to what you're doing, but I still think there's a place to add more resistance training in. It doesn't have to be going to a gym. It doesn't even have to be picking up a dumbbell. Like, if you're just getting started with this, our own body weight is resistance, right? Like, if you are squatting down, holding your body weight, that is putting stimulus on your quads and on your glutes and on your hamstrings, the muscles in your lower legs, just simply by moving your own body weight up and down. I do think, again, getting some sort of program, and even if it's body weight in your home, in your bedroom, is smart, because again, you can achieve progressive overload, which is what you need. Again, moving your body, lifting more, putting more resistance on those muscles over time, even with your body weight. And it could be a simple, I'm going to start with doing 3 sets of 5 squats, right? And when those 3 sets of 5 squats feel okay, then I'm going to go to 3 sets of 8 squats. And then when then I can do that, I'm going to increase it 3 sets of 10 squats. That's progressive overload, ladies. That's putting more and more load on those muscles. And it can be done all at home. It doesn't need to be fancy. Like I said, when I'm talking about strength training and doing this, it doesn't mean you have to be in the gym with a massive, you know, squat barbell on your shoulders doing this. Don't be surprised if you eventually want that to be it, because it's kind of awesome, you know, to lift more weight, as you know, once you get started and feeling strong, there's no end to that. I love it, but it doesn't have to be that. You know, it can be as simple as getting a pair of resistance bands. You can buy them, honestly, at like practically our dollar stores here. You can order them on Amazon, and doing things like that. It doesn't have to be complicated. And I think that's the most important message, so that women don't feel overwhelmed. You can start doing it 10 minutes 3 times a week, and then increase it to 20 minutes 3 times a week. That's sufficient. And it's great. And it's a lot more than what you're doing right now. So it's wonderful. It's progress. It doesn't have to be complicated.
Oh, I love that. I love that advice. So let's say that you've got someone who is, they're pretty motivated now and they want to get started in building their muscle. How do you recommend that they get started?
This is a very good question. So from the nutrition piece, they need to start paying attention to their protein. Ladies, start eating more protein. Like, honestly, you'll hear me say it all the time.
Protein.
And you've
Yep.
heard me make jokes on this. You've heard me make jokes. That's like, my husband's always like, if you're ever going to have an affair on me, it will be with protein because you love it that much. But truly and honestly, like, the protein piece is key, because it doesn't matter what you're doing in the gym. It doesn't matter how. So the resistance training is the stimulus to the muscle, but the protein is what it needs to build. So if you can imagine that the workout you're doing is like sending the contractor to build the house, but if you don't have the brick and the mortar or the hammer and the nails, you can't build anything, right? So start focusing on protein. That's the one thing. And as far as starting resistance training, if possible, and I know this isn't accessible to everyone, but if possible, even 2 or 3 sessions with a personal trainer who could give you some basic instructions on the basic exercises, like with proper form, what a good squat looks like, what a good lunge looks like, what a good, hip thrust or things like that, push up, against a wall, where whatever level you're at. I really do recommend that when possible, but I do appreciate they're not cheap and they're not always accessible. So honestly, the internet is a really, really, really great place for a lot of information. You can get some really great programs on that. There's some specific people that I really, really think highly of in the world of training. Jordan Syatt is definitely one of them. He does some great programs. If you haven't listened to him, ladies, he does say a few curse words. So if you're really against that, don't follow his accounts. But when it comes to his nutrition and fitness advice, he's solid gold. But honestly, anything like that, I haven't really toyed around with the AI world. But there are now AI, generated programs where you can literally put into ChatGPT like strength training for beginner, body weight only, and it will spit you out, a little program and stuff. I would still take the time, if you've never squatted, for instance, in your life, to YouTube like good squat form and those kind of things. Obviously, this all takes a little bit more time getting started, but I promise you the effort you put in the beginning to kind of get the general knowledge will then fly through life for you, and you'll be able to, take advantage of this for the rest of your life. But yeah, if possible, like I said, there is a lot of value in getting a session or two. I finally convinced my 81-year-old almost mother that strength training is what she needs more of in life. So she just went to a personal trainer, did some sessions to learn. Yeah. So it's never too late to get started, and it's never too late to reap the benefits. That's for sure.
I can't imagine her legs with a few squats. Wow.
I know.
She's already got amazing legs.
She does have amazing legs. But you know what? Even it's one of those things, it's maintaining that strength and mobility wise. The other thing I would say is, again, if you're listening and you're just wanting to feel like you can, like, don't underestimate, what getting those steps in really does. Again, that movement. So for my clients, for the women that I work with, on top of the nutrition, really working on their protein and their fiber and figuring out their energy balance, I work with an amazing trainer. He designs the strength training programs for them. But we're also a huge proponents of just getting those steps in, right? And we do know that, again, the amount of steps we get in a day in movement does have a direct correlation with our all-cause mortality as well. So I generally tell the women I'm working with to aim for at least sort of 6,000 steps a day. The more the better, but 6,000 sort of, if possible, being the lower end of what they are working for most days. Obviously, not every day is possible.
It's funny. I just heard something recently. I didn't know, but that 10,000 steps a day was just some kind of, can't remember the story, but some arbitrary number because of that's what they were limited to in a study or something. So there was
totally arbitrary. No. And again, don't quote me, but there is I feel like it was for people under 60, but there is a really good study that was done, but it showed the most effect, the most benefit when it came to longevity was if you were under 60 up to 8,000, and then it sort of plateaued after that. And if you were over 60, it was the 6,000 mark that you saw the most dramatic improvement in or decrease in all-cause mortality. And then it would plateau after that, which is why I always tell my clients sort of like aim for 6,000 to 8,000 in there if possible.
Perfect. Jordan Syatt, what was his surname?
Yeah, Syatt, Syatt.
Okay.
He's a great, just very evidence-based, very down to earth, keeps it real. The one thing I would say, because in the world of social media, there are so many influencers. And the reality is very few have the education to back them up, right? Like, you can just become an influencer simply by looking fit, and, posting a few videos and getting the right amount of followers. And all of a sudden you're an influencer. I don't understand the world, but it is there. So I always tell my clients to sort of tread cautiously in the world of social media. There are definitely great accounts out there, but definitely my red flags for any sort of social media account, particularly in the world of nutrition, is if in the bio they have their diet as their description, meaning like vegan, carnivore, keto queen, like all those kind of things, that's a red flag. Because truly and honestly, somebody who identifies their own sort of, who basically their identity is with a specific diet, they are going to be biased, meaning they are going to be pulling the studies that feed their script and ignoring the information in the studies that don't, because it's a part of who they are. And despite the fact that nutrition really is simply biochemistry, a lot of people turn it almost into a faith, right? Like they become so fully immersed in their diet type or style that it becomes a part of the identity. So it's hard for them to sort of see the new information emerging or information emerging from an unbiased point of view. So just again, small tidbit, I always say, if you're looking at, the nutrition space, just be wary of people that have a specific diet type in their bio, because generally it will mean they're automatically biased.
I'll just add to that as well. As you talked about, we've both exercised for many, many years. Resistance training has been a part of life for many, many years, and more and less, depending on what was happening, little kids, bigger kids, just life in general. But it's always been a thread through my life. And this period of life, this midlife period that hit me so hard, I just can't even imagine what that would have been like had I not had those fundamentals and used that to help me get through this period. So I'm a huge proponent, and you can see that through, I think, all the things that I do and talk about. Was there anything in particular that you wanted to share to wrap up with? Is there anything that we missed? Is there any piece that you think is important that we haven't touched on today?
No, we covered the basics. Definitely when it comes to the importance of strength training, when it comes to nutrition, it really is about the protein, the fiber, the energy balance. Like, again, it sounds like a lot as we're rhyming it off, but if you even sort of pick one piece of the puzzle to work at a time, ladies, you don't have to figure it out all at once. My biggest advice, and I say this all the time to the women I work with, is because most of the time, and I have no doubt many of your listeners, like you get to the point of feeling discouraged because you've tried so many things and none of it seems to be working, right? So you get to the point you just feel like, I want to give up. In fact, one of the physicians I worked with, she's an internal medicine specialist, like super smart, but even she was like, that's it. My body like defies all laws of thermodynamics. Like, I just have some like alien body that does not respond. Anyway, my point is we've all been there, myself included. And the most important message I would want your listeners to hear is if you truly do work on the foundations, again, just moving your body in ways that you love, getting those steps in, starting to introduce some resistance training, starting to focus on your nutrition and fiber. The only way it's not going to work for you, like the only way this is not going to take you to where you want to be, whether it be in your body composition goals or just how you feel in your body, how you feel doing the things you love. The only way it's not going to work is if you give up on it. And that's the biggest thing and the biggest take home message. It may take some time to get rid of that belly fat. It may take some time to build that muscle and see that definition or see it change. If you keep going at it, you will get there. Like it can't go wrong. Not if you are just focusing on the simple foundations. Again, moving your body in ways you love, getting the strength training in, focusing on the protein and the fiber in an energy balanced way. If you keep plugging away at that, you will get to where you need to be. And I think that is where I see most women go wrong. We give up when it doesn't come fast enough, right? We just think this is not working. When really it's actually working, it's just not working as fast as it used to. So you're not letting yourself see the subtle differences. You're not letting yourself notice, you're just waiting for your pants to feel better, but you haven't noticed that like climbing the stairs, your legs didn't feel as tired, right? Or carrying the groceries in from the car, you were able to carry 4 bags instead of 2. Or now you don't need your husband to help you take the winter tires, again, Canadian analogy here, but take the winter tires out of the back of the car. Like I can do that myself. Those kind of things are happening around you. And if you start to really take note of those, those little changes, and they're not little changes, they're big changes, but changes outside of how you look, right? Then all of a sudden it will keep you motivated to keep going. And if you keep going, I promise the pants will eventually start to fit better, right? And you'll start to see the muscle definition. And all of a sudden you'll be like, whoo, look at my butt. Like I have a butt now, because I've been doing all those squats and all those things. But that's not what you need to be focusing on, right? You need to be focusing on all of what we call non-scale victories. What's going on off the scale, right? In your strength, in your everyday life, and how you feel, in your mood, in your energy. Those are the things that really matter. And if you sort of hone into those while you're going through putting in the work at eating more protein, eating more fiber, and getting your resistance training in, then you'll have the motivation to keep going. And that's the biggest thing that I see us getting wrong. We give up. We just think, nope, this is it for me for the rest of my life. This is the new me. And you know what? If this is the new you and you love the new you and you feel wonderful and you have the energy and you're doing that, like that's also amazing, right? That's what we all deserve, is to feel wonderful in the bodies we have and the lives we're living. But just simply thinking I'm unhappy and this is the way I'm just going to be unhappy for the rest of my life, or feel unenergetic, or, all of these things. I hope no one listening feels like they have to be stuck there, because they really, really, really don't.
I think that you have just made such a good point, because I do think that most of us, as we age, it becomes less important how we look, but more important how we feel. So that becomes a real kind of intrinsic motivator to make these changes. All those things, being able to lift and carry and sleep better and feel, just a better mood. And there's just so much more to it. So there might not even be the motivation to change the way you look. It might just be wanting to feel better. And all of those things can be helped by all the things that we've talked about today. And I also just wanted to make another point when you talked about pretty much essentially consistency. The consistency is the key, one foot in front of the other, stringing a lot of days together, continuing to head in that direction. And one thing I've learned in my life is that just about that time when you're thinking about giving up, and then one more day and you see the improvement, it's amazing how life can work like that.
It's so true. Consistency is, 90% of the game. And just, again, believing in yourself, believing in the process, and expecting there'll be days and there'll be, you'll be derailed, right? You'll have a terrible week at work. You'll get sick. One of your family members will need you. It's not always going to be perfect. There'll be times you have to step away from focusing on these principles. But as long as you keep coming back to it, and I talk about the comeback all the time, that when life settles down, you come back to those principles again. Yeah. You come back to, again, working on your protein, working on your fiber, getting your resistance training in. As long as you come back to it, you will always, always, always win, for sure, for sure. And truly and honestly, it's funny you say that, because we do know, like, actually evidence shows that you are wise, right? Our motivation as to why we want to have a behavior change, if it's deeper than simply body composition, how we look, it actually will be more powerful and keep us going. We know that simply wanting to change the way our bodies look is not enough to keep us motivated, and it shouldn't be enough, right? And I love, at the beginning, I said there's some positives to this stage in our life. That's part of it. Like, again, I feel like by this age, we get what matters, right? And it's so funny because I've done goblet squats my whole life. So ladies, for those of you that know, it's where you hold a weight in your two hands, and I do goblet to box. So I sit down on a box and then I stand back up. And always when I was younger, it was the lifting the weights. I was envisioning like my legs getting stronger and my, all the things that you care about when you're 20, right? Like what your legs look like and whatever, what your butt looks like and all those things. Now, truly and honestly, every time I pick up a heavier dumbbell, I'm like, now it's a 60-pound grandchild I can get out of the chair with holding. That's literally what I'm thinking. And no, I'm 48, people. I'm not anticipating a grand in the nearest future, but that's literally what I do now when I'm thinking. Like now when I'm getting off that bench, I'm literally like, this is a grandchild. I'm getting out of the chair while holding. And now it's like an 80-pound. They can be a good 10-year-old and I can still get them out of the chair. Those are the things I'm literally thinking about when I'm lifting those weights. And to me, I mean, I'm not expecting it to be, it truly is motivating.
Well, that's probably a really good place to wrap it up. Thank you so much, Suzanne, for taking the time out to be with us today. I know you're really busy, so I'm just so grateful for you sharing your expertise with us today.
Super excited to be here. And I hope some of your listeners got some information that may be helpful. Like I said, the most important thing is that the more information we have, the more empowered we are. And we all deserve to, again, this should be the best time of our lives. And I really do feel like the second half of our lives can be even better than the first. So hopefully your listeners feel empowered the same way.
Right. Thank you. If you're interested in hearing more from Suzanne and her expertise around all things nutrition in body recomposition, she has a podcast along with her co-creator of the Fit Physician program, Jake. They have their own podcast, so you can find that on all the popular hosting sites. So you may want to check that out. There's some really, really good information there. I hope that you found all of this helpful. I am sure that you have. I'm very confident that you have. I hope that you put it to good use. Have a great couple of weeks. And until then, I hope you opt to thrive.
The Opt to Thrive podcast is designed for information purposes only and is not engaged in the giving of medical advice. The information provided on the podcast should not be used for diagnosing or treating a health problem or disease. In no way should the information provided by Opt to Thrive be considered medical advice, and at all times the advice of a medical professional should supersede recommendations from Opt to Thrive. If you have or suspect you may have a health problem, you should consult your healthcare provider. The views expressed in this podcast are purely that of Dr. Sims and do not in any way reflect those of the institution she contracts her medical services to.
Thank you for listening to Opt to Thrive. If you've enjoyed listening, please rate and share the podcast. You can visit our website at opttothrive.com and leave a comment for any subjects you would like to hear more about.